What's happening, sports fans? Happy Hump Day. It is September 24th. Thanks very much for tuning into the Tampa Bay podcast. I have not been a person of my word, though I have left everything kind of open-ended. I thought today we'd be talking a little bit about the Rob Higgins press conference from earlier this week. If you have listened to the show previously, you know that the last 2 weeks have been fairly USF-focused. I mean, post-Gator win, and of course post-Miami win into the South Carolina State game. However, there's quite a bit going on elsewhere. Of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing. That has certainly been a topic number one with most folks covering the Tampa Bay sports scene. However, very interesting Lightning storylines continuing, and it is a very interesting time for the Tampa Bay Rays as the Sternberg ownership group prepares to exit and the Zapolsky ownership group prepares to enter. And we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. In addition to some Bucks, in addition to some Lightning, it will be a light USF evening. Hopefully more of that tomorrow and probably Friday as well. As the Bulls are on a bye week, that'll give us time to look back to some of the more interesting notes of that Rob Higgins press conference. But we have not really gotten to take a look at the NFL much, aside from the dissection of the Bucs win versus the Jets, which we talked about quite a bit on Monday. Significant notes lingering from that game. Certainly the injury to Mike Evans. It was announced that he is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks with a hamstring that has really plagued him every year in recent memory. That is certainly disappointing. The good news on the injury front is the vibe is that Tristan Wirfs will be back and Chris Godwin might be back. Chris Godwin, of course, coming back from that hideous dislocation of the ankle. I still am of the opinion that he probably will not play this coming weekend. I got a feeling they're going to try and push that to a game-time decision as much as they can. I do expect we'll see Tristan Wirfs back again, just based off the things that have been put out by those covering the team closely the past couple of weeks. Across the NFL this past weekend, much has been talked about. Notable scores we saw: Cleveland defeats Green Bay, a Green Bay team that a lot of people thought was the best team in football. Coming into that game a great reminder that it is very early and we really still do not know a lot. There was a tweet from Greg Auman that I want to pull up. He had the combined records of the opponents of the undefeated teams remaining. The undefeated teams being the Eagles, 49ers, Chargers, Bills, Bucks, and Colts. For the Bills, Bucks, and Colts, their opponents' record all 1-5. And worth mentioning that, of course, very small sample size. All those teams, 3 of those 5 losses coming to those undefeated teams. Chargers 500, 49ers, Eagles 4-2. It's really just tough to know much yet, but things shake out, and we learn that, hey, maybe the Green Bay Packers, after I think one of their players might have predicted that they would not lose another game, do indeed lose another game to the fairly hapless Cleveland Browns. Other interesting news of note, the Colts are pretty good. Another big win for them, 41-20. They take down the Titans. Vikings with Carson Wentz spank the Cincinnati Bengals. Really good game between the Eagles, who we are about to see, and the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego, Anaheim, and whatever city you would like to pick out in California. 33-26, your final. Philly comes back to win that game. They were down 2 scores, I do believe. And you would like to think maybe the emotional hangover of coming back, winning at home, could carry over, but unfortunately, that is a team that has been there, done that. I am still not totally sold on the Eagles being the best team in football, which is where a lot of people have them in the power rankings right now. I do think they are very good. And right now, I think that is really the only way you can properly classify teams. Very good teams, of which they are one. I believe the Bucks may be one as well when they are healthy. Right now, I think we are a top-notch good team or a bottom-tier very good team. We'll learn a little bit more this coming Sunday with that 1 o'clock kickoff. Other notable score, Carolina Panthers beat the Atlanta Falcons 30-0. The Falcons, I do believe, have a pretty talented roster. I certainly thought coming into the season that they would be the Bucks' competition in the NFC South. The Saints always provide a challenge, seemingly no matter how good or bad their roster is, they will play us tough. I am beginning to think that the Atlanta Falcons might be one of the more incompetent organizations in the NFL. Just kind of take a look at the decisions they have made already this season. Getting rid of Younghoe Koo. Okay, not the craziest thing ever, but you're not getting rid of him for a sure thing. There is not some seasoned kicker who came available that you took. It's Parker Romo, who struggled mightily in the first game after he took over as the starter. And then I did not look super closely, but I know that Penix was pulled. And I should have done a little bit more research. Kirk Cousins went into the game. I don't know if that was just to preserve Penix when they thought the game was over. But nevertheless, you really have to question putting that guy on the bench. It's not a veteran who you are worried about, keeping healthy, not taking any additional licks. That's a guy who could probably benefit from the reps. You pull him for Kirk Cousins late in that game again. Whether they want to say it was because it got out of control or not, not good things going on in Atlanta, which is great. We love that. This division should be belonging to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again. We hope that is the case. Very long season, things can change, but there is not really a team that strikes a ton of fear into you right now. Other notable scores, Bears able to smack Dallas in the revenge game versus Dallas defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Around the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints killed by the Seattle Seahawks 44-13. Pretty good game on Monday Night Football. Detroit really rallying from that opening week loss versus Green Bay. They defeat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore 38-30. That is a defense in Baltimore, I think, dealing with some injury troubles, but looks incredibly suspect here early in the season. I want to pull up to take a quick look at our game coming up on 1 o'clock Sunday. Bucks taking on the Eagles. Game, of course, at Raymond James. Right now, the Eagles are 3.5-point favorites. Over-under set at 43.5, so Vegas is expecting a fairly tight and low-scoring game. So far in the season, taking a quick look at the leaders for each team. Baker, more passing yards, more passing attempts, more touchdowns than Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley off to a nice start with a couple touchdowns. 194 rushing yards through 3 games. Of course, A.J. Brown, the other guy, who has had a pretty nice start to the season, though. Trailing our leading wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka with 14 catches for 3 tutties. A.J. Brown, 12 catches with just a single touchdown. Gut feeling on this game is that it will be a one-score game. I am concerned that the injuries may finally catch up to the Bucs. Yes, I think the Eagles might be a little bit overhyped early in the season, but they are not catching us at our best. If Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin are back, that does help a lot, but you do not expect Chris Godwin to jump back in and be getting the normal volume of reps, which would be a necessity with Mike Evans out. This game, I think, really will be won on the ground. Whichever team has more rushing yards at the end of it, I think, comes away with the victory. Unfortunately, I really do like the spread that Vegas has set Eagles by a couple of points, but The Bucs have had the guts early on. The Eagles are having to come on the road. It's going to be close, and I sure hope that our favorite football team is coming out on top. More about that game coming up tomorrow and Friday. Perhaps get some more clarity on injury news as we get a little bit closer to the game. Tampa Bay Lightning got another preseason win undefeated. 2 road wins on the road, beating the Predators in a shootout. Also had the first round of cuts today. The Lightning posted that, I believe. I read the article on it Eduardo Encina had, but it would be a little bit easier to go to the Lightning Twitter feed to just read off the list. The Lightning have reduced their training camp roster by 10 today. Julien Brisebois announced there are now 53 players remaining on the team's roster. Notable names released: Sam O'Reilly, Aiden Foster. I need to check some pronunciations. I'm going to say Ethan Zada, Everett Baldwin, Jan Golicic, Caleb Heil, Marco Mignosa, Caden Petrie, and Grant Spada round out the list. Additionally, let's see, Maddox, Lebre was released from the training camp roster, will report to Victoriaville in the queue. Not a ton notable coming out of those releases. The big news still looming large over the Tampa Bay Lightning. No Andrei Vasilevsky on the ice. And we were told by John Cooper to expect him to be out a week. Today is day number 5. We will be closely monitoring that one. Want to see here on the X machine any notable news. Click on our latest. Good tweet from Andrew Weiss at Weiss Hockey Talk. At the asterisk by the whispers, more of you should be concerned that Andrei Vasilevsky isn't skating. I would agree. Sports News Times put out an article as well. I have a feeling a lot of this was just pulled from other articles. Nothing new or of note there. That does appear to be the case. Again, we will be monitoring that one very closely. Want to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays. There have been 2 reports that I find kind of interesting. One from Evan Klosky, who is with Channel 10, the sports director there, and another article that I believe, was that Mark Topkin who put that out? It was indeed. I want to play the report from Evan Klosky, who, this was from his newscast, but also tweeted it out, which is what I will be playing it from. The tweet reads, and there is video accompanying this: Stu Sternberg's mantra was break some windows, don't burn down the house. Ultimately, not having a house is what did him in. I'm going to go ahead and play this, and we'll talk about it a little bit after, and then read what I thought was a good article in the Tampa Bay Times with some opinions from Joe Madden, Evan Longoria on Stu Sternberg himself.
Leadership, the Rays went to the playoffs 9 times, won the AL East 4 times, and won the pennant twice. For a team consistently near the bottom of baseball in attendance and payroll, in the past 20 years, the Rays ranked 6th in winning percentage. Sternberg's love for the game made him an insider, but his approach to the sport made him an outsider. Traditionalists scowled at his investment in analytics, use of openers, and reliance on the shift. Teams had to adjust to Tampa Bay's tactics, adopt them, and in some cases force Major League Baseball to eradicate the maneuvers from the game. Other organizations poached executives and coaches just to get a taste of Stu's secret sauce. As owner of the team, you'll be hard-pressed to find many in that organization top down who say a bad word about the guy. He is a beloved figure to those working for and with the team. As for the fans, well, there's a disconnect. Stu Sternberg is certainly a winner, but he doesn't want to win at all costs. His payroll was never acceptable for the fan base. The Rays spent more than $80 million on an opening day payroll twice. The largest free agent contract is Zach Eflin at 3 years, $40 million. Before Wander Franco's legal issues, he was given the largest contract in team history, but many wondered if he would even make it close to the end of that deal. Evan Longoria was extended and dealt before his full no-trade clause kicked in. Blake Snell was extended and traded 2 seasons later. Eflin, who I just mentioned, didn't even make it a full 2 years on a 3-year contract. I can go on and on. Under Stu, the Rays were great at doling out money for others to pick up the tab at a later date. Under Stu, the team knew how to acquire great talent, knew how to develop great talent, but never let the fan fall in love too long. I've been told this many times by people, and it applies to many facets of Stu's tenure. He likes to date, but he doesn't want to get married. It was almost always better to keep filling up the farm system, shuffling players, than keep a fan favorite who might be a depreciating asset or due for a big paycheck. Logical? Absolutely. But this is sports. We're talking about fans. Emotions matter. Stu and this organization wanted to date players, but the fans wanted to fall in love. Didn't happen often enough. The skeptics grew louder. Apathy kicked in. It hurt the brand. It hurt Stu's trust in the community. Stu's mantra was break some windows. Don't burn down the house. But having no house is what ultimately did him in. There are 2 notable failures during Stu's tenure. No World Series win and no new stadium. Stu dangled a new stadium for nearly his entire tenure as owner, and this community gave up on him a long time ago. He drove politicians on both sides of the bridge crazy.
I have no interest in working with this ownership group.
He floated out playing half the season in Montreal like fans in this area should be thankful to share their team.
We've been through this long enough that all for their own is not going to be an option going forward.
Stu wasn't a villain like John Fisher in Oakland. He didn't trade all his players, leave a crap product on the field to pick up everything and just leave. It's just building a stadium was too much of a commitment. The St. Pete deal was a home run for Stu. Tons of public funding, a sweet discount on the land. He was never getting a better deal than that, and he turned it down.
We've made a number of missteps over the years. We dust ourselves off, we come back again.
The PR mumbo-jumbo wasn't working anymore. It was finally clear to Major League Baseball that Stu was never going to build here. He had to go. So in the end, what's his legacy? I'll sum it up like this. He certainly left the place better than how he found it, but he still left behind some broken windows, and those are issues the new ownership group has to fix. As time moves forward, we will probably look back more fondly on the Stu Sternberg era. But in the present, a breakup was necessary. For a man who never wanted to get married, this certainly feels like the way his relationship with Tampa Bay was supposed to end.
I agree with virtually everything Evan said there. And I do think that you can't really talk about the Rays without giving them credit for, and Stu Sternberg specifically, for what they did on the baseball side. And the one thing I disagree with a little bit with Evan, I personally, and I know some diehard Rays fans, I was one. I think I'm going to be able to come one again pretty quickly. And I know people that are much further into baseball than I am. And what I think prevented the disconnect with fans really was not the lack of desire to spend more on players specifically. I don't think it was not being able to keep an Evan Longoria. I don't think it was the size of the payroll. I appreciated that. I liked the underdog mentality the Rays carried. I don't think it's a bad thing to spend less and spend smarter. I personally certainly would like the team to win a World Series and, be able to hang those banners, have those trophies. I cannot say that on-field performance has affected my thoughts or anyone I know's thoughts of the Rays. It wasn't the lack of commitment to payroll. It was a lack of commitment to the community. And I don't mean, I'm sure the Sternberg family donated significant money back to the community, but the fact that they didn't want to be here. And at the end of that, Evan really hit on it, that it was alluded to from virtually the time he got here. And even reading the tea leaves, it turned out that we were right. Major League Baseball said as much, that Stu did not want to be here. And when you don't want to be here, I have said this a couple times, you cannot expect people to keep showing up and spending money. The Montreal thing was basically the curtain falling down, and I like how Evan put it. You should be thankful that a game has been played here. This ties into a lot of things Rob Higgins is saying. No, we are not this podunk town that is happy to have table scraps. Tampa Bay, Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton, that region is a powerhouse. It is increasing in every metric that cities can increase in. It has arrived. So to treat it as a second-class city will not fly with me or anyone who takes pride in being from there. A lot of us could tell that very early on, which is touched on in this article by Mark Topkin in the Tampa Bay Times. The title is Former, Current Rays Weigh In on Stuart Sternberg's Legacy. And I like the way that it starts, acknowledging Stuart Sternberg took a lot of jabs in his 20-plus years running the Rays over his methods in trying to get a new stadium built, that he didn't care about the team winning or the community, for being a carpetbagger from New York who did not move full-time to Tampa Bay. But more than anything, for how much money he spent or didn't spend on player payroll. That's what Mark is touching on here as he talks to Evan Longoria and Joe Madden. And Evan Longoria says, quote, there were always people that were going to say, oh, he could have spent more. And I was one of those people during the time when I was playing there. I was like, why can't we just go out and get this player or that player? Longoria goes on and acknowledges that when he got away from it, he didn't mind it as much. And Joe Madden kind of touches on the same thing, saying, it wasn't bigger or better, it was smarter. And again, that might be the A topic for the media to point out. That might be the A topic for people who cover the team and talk with other reporters who cover other teams. Yeah, they don't have the big name star. They don't. I think back to all the great players that the Rays have had. My favorite Ray of all time has always been Carl Crawford. I loved Carl Crawford's game. He, had his time with the Rays, was excellent. Left the Rays, was not as excellent. I liked Carl Crawford when we had him. I was sad when he left, but you move on. I think of the pitching staff that got us to the first World Series. Matt Garza, David Price, James Shields. Those guys were great here. Some of them went on to bigger, better contracts. Some of them kind of fizzled out. I appreciated them while I was here. Understood why they left. And it wasn't coming up short, not having a World Series that for me as a fan bugged me. It was knowing that the person who has this team doesn't think this community deserves it. And then this person seems to be increasingly confused why the community is not showing up as much. Good things take time, and you are not going to be able to get to where you want to be if you don't have the buy-in. I don't think there was ever any real interest in getting the buy-in from St. Pete or Tampa, for that matter. And I think that ultimately is the reason that we are in the process of this team being sold. And I am optimistic that that has been witnessed in having a group of owners who are in this area, in this state, and have an appreciation for it will allow for one of two things: a new stadium to be built in the area, or what I think would be a much harder process, ultimately, it is what I would like, recognize the value of downtown St. Petersburg and Tropicana Field. I know many people disagree with that. I have a feeling some people listening to this disagree with that. Trust me, the location of Tropicana Field can work. It can work. I will say, as I've been reading some other articles, different locations, there's been talk about the Ybor location, the Dale Mabry location. We'll talk a little Philadelphia sports. I think that Philadelphia sports fans are the toughest. I'll say that they have a reputation for being the worst, The fans that I like to deal the least with are Boston and New York sports fans. That has to do a lot with the opponents at the Rays. I've played for a long time in the AL East. As a young boy, I got in many shouting matches with grown adult Red Sox fans at Tropicana Field. I reflect upon those memories fondly. Philadelphia, I went to for the first time this summer, and I wanted to hate it. Unfortunately for me, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, Philadelphia rocks. That is an awesome, awesome city. And outside the stadium, if you're not cheering against their team, the people are phenomenal. Their football stadium, their baseball stadium, and their hockey and basketball stadium are in the same area. It's a short walk in between, but you're pretty darn close to all of them when you are down in the Infinity, can't think of the name of the exact spot. They've also got a giant mega sports bar that's like a collection of 10 or 12 different sports bars. They also have a giant casino there. It is just an unbelievable layout. Putting a baseball stadium on Dale Mabry within the same kind of range of Raymond James Stadium and not too far from downtown Tampa could be awesome. I acknowledge it. As a St. Pete guy who wants the Rays to stay in St. Pete, this ownership group has opportunities. As we touched on last week, you can have your opinion. What really matters is if the Rays stay in the Tampa Bay region. I hope and I think that this current group coming in to take over the team is going to be able to get that done. I'm going to call it quits there tonight. Thank you, everybody who tuned in to listen to the Tampa Bay podcast. As a reminder, please follow us on X at Tampa Bay ×2. That is at Tampa Bay, the letter X, and the number 2. If you're not on X, want to hear something discussed, have an opinion, think this is great, think this is terrible, would love you to let me know at Tampa Bay ×2 at gmail.com. That is Tampa Bay, the letter X, the number 2 at gmail.com. We'll talk to you tomorrow night.